Okay, so we're going to talk about variables in this movie. Variables is the basics of Flash ActionScript 3 programming. And the way you define a variable is by typing the word var, then you provide a name, so we'll call this number, and then you put a colon and you specify the data type. A data type is what kind of data is inside this variable. So I'm going to type string, and then I'll close it off with a semicolon. Now in order to give the value number, the variable number a value, you can type number equals and give it a value of 4. Okay? Now 4 is actually it's actually an integer, so that won't work, but if we put quotes around it, it'll actually become the number 4. Now for testing and debugging purpose, we're going to echo that back out to the trace. So we should see that right here we are assigning a value to number, and here we are outputting it. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to do Control Enter to test and debug my movie, and you're going to see right up here that that actually worked just fine. Now another way to actually assign the value is right up here. You can assign it during its creation. Now I'll show you what happens if I just put the number 4, which is actually a number, and it's not a string. You're going to get some kind of a compile error when you try to run that. It's going to say implicit coercion of a value type of int to an unrelated type string. Now there's two ways to solve this. We can either make it into a string just by putting quotes around it. Now that will solve the problem, and we'll trace it out again by putting the variable name down here. So this would actually work and display the number 4. The other way to solve the problem is to actually change it into an integer, this data type. So we'll change it into the word int, and then we can change it back to a 4. Now by default, all numbers, when they are traced, they have a toString method that's automatically called that converts it into its string form. So if you trace out a number, the toString method will be called on the integer. Now I'll show you what I mean. We'll go back to the int data type in the classes. So I'm going to search for int. Actually, I'll just find it manually by scrolling down here to int. Let's find it here. Where is it? There it is. It's int. Okay, so int is a built-in data type or a built-in class, the same thing. Data type and class, you're also going to find that they're used interchangeably. So right here, you can actually call the method manually toString, or you could see that the method is built in here, and it says return the string representation of an int. So alternatively, if you really want it to be explicit, using code hinting now, this is the power of code hinting, we're going to put a dot. And when you do that, you'll see that toString is available here. And so all you have to, it's a method. And so that'll do the exact same thing as what was doing before. This time we're being explicit about it, and that's how that works. And so that's pretty much all there is to know about variables. Just make sure that when you define it, you use the word var, and you specify a name for the variable. Then you put a colon and you put what kind of data that this variable is going to hold. Now ActionScript 3 is a strongly typed language. What that means is you have to specify the data type of your variables, and that helps with compile time checking. Whenever you compile, the compiler knows what data type you're working with, and so it analyzes this value over here, whatever you assign to it, and it can do better error checking and error reporting for you, better debugging. And so there's a little bit more to variables than meets the eye. By default, there's actually an implicit private in front of it. So all variables are declared private, and that's called an access modifier, I believe. So what you want to do is you can either declare private or public. Now I always declare everything public. When you're first beginning, you're going to want to make sure that you declare everything as public. And that's not going to modify the code. I'll run it again, and it just it's going to work as expected. But just whenever you declare a variable, just add the word public before it, and then put var. Then you give it a name, and then a data type, and an equal sign, and you can assign it a value. And that's everything there is to know about variables.